Welcome everyone to this latest Zero Carbon Mine webinar, where we discuss everything around the decarbonisation of the mining industry. Today we've got Michael and Tariq from ICMM to talk about pathways to decarbonisation in mining operations. So I'll hand it over to those guys to kick us off, share the presentation.
Thanks, Brett.
Thank you, Brett.
And if you've got any questions as we go through, raise your hand. I'll put them in the chat box, or we'll get to them when we can.
Perfect, Brett. Could you just confirm if you see my screen?
Yep, I've got that.
Terrific. So thank you, Brett, for this opportunity, and welcome everyone. Morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you're based. So ICMM, the International Council on Mining and Metals, is a unique industry body. So we're not like any trade association where we kind of serve a commercial interest of our members, but rather our purpose is to drive collaboration and enhance contribution to mining and metal sustainable development through leadership. So we represent nearly 1/3 of the mining and metals industries. So we have 24 mining companies as our members and over 45 national and commodity associations. So here you can see an overview of our 24 members. We obviously couldn't fit in all the logos of the national and commodity associations, but they're equally as important. So this year we kicked off our new strategy, which is a 5-year strategy. Previously, we used to work on 3-year strategy plans. So our approach for mining with principles is basically mining is essentially very, very important for modern life. So wherever we are in the world, metals and minerals form an integral part of our everyday life. So simply put, a green version of almost anything requires more metals. So as the world decarbonizes, the demand for minerals will only accelerate. And ICMM, we believe that this does not grant the industry a license to mine at any cost. So quite the opposite. We need to be more and more careful and very responsible and make sure that we mine with principles. So here's our vision. And we'd like to set a really high bar for mining through strong performance, clear standards, and transparent advocacy. And by integrating priorities, we aim to transform mining, ensuring that we achieve mining through sustainable principles and then reduce our environmental footprint and then ensure also stronger social outcomes. And today we'll be talking about the initiative for cleaner, safer vehicles. And here you can see it highlighted pretty much that we'd like to eliminate fatalities and reduce emissions across the value chains. So who are we? Just a quick introduction from our side. So I'm Tariq Karimullah, Senior Program Officer for Decarbonization and Innovation. So I lead the greenhouse gas pillar of ICSV. The greenhouse gas pillar basically looks at the surface mining decarbonization. I'm joined by my colleague, Michael.
So thanks, Tariq. So my name is Michael Diebenhagen, Manager for Safety and Innovation, where, as Tariq mentioned, we do look at the safety component as well, where we look at the vehicle interaction and also for the underground, looking at diesel particulate matter on health. So for today's presentation, we'll just discuss the DPM side and not the vehicle interaction. So yeah, thanks, Tariq. So just an overview of what the ICSV initiative is. So it's just bringing together all the world's largest equipment manufacturers in a non-competitive space to accelerate the development of new generation of mining vehicles. And we've got the 3 pillars to improve existing technologies and assist with developing or assisting the development of technology. So as mentioned, diesel particulate matter focusing on underground operations, vehicle interaction, looking at the machine interactions on safety, and also greenhouse gas reduction for open cast mining. So the initiative focuses on promoting collision avoidance technology. So we're looking at some of the leading factors.
I think we might have some audio issues from Mike, so I'll just take on the baton. So yeah, these are ambitions primarily. So we are looking at eliminating fatalities as part of the vehicle interactions pillar, and then make collision avoidance available across all mining companies by pushing change through the industry, not just the ICMM membership. And today, during our presentation, the rest of the presentation, we'd like to focus more on the other two pillars. So underground decarbonization, which is more of a health issue, but also emissions related. And then surface mining, the ambition being minimizing operational impact of diesel exhaust in underground, and then emissions reductions, emissions-free surface mining vehicles by 2040. So these are basically our members and the OEM or technology provider partners that are part of ICSV, along with our partner companies as our partner association. So we have the Charging Initiative for Charging Interoperability, and then we have Immersed, was looking more on the safety and vehicle interaction side. And we have 9 companies overall that are very openly sharing their technology and then their pathways, their roadmaps to zero emissions, and actively collaborating in this non-competitive space. So it goes without saying that mining needs to be at the forefront of tackling climate change, because if you look at just scope 1, then typically around 30 to 50% of emissions at a mine site, depending on the kind of operation, are directly linked to diesel haul trucks. And one significant challenge is like reducing this. So if you look at some stats from just 2021, I'm pretty sure the numbers are higher now, but these are the closest established statistics that we have. So 28,000 large haul trucks is what we have, and they kind of roughly are equivalent of CO2 emissions that can be compared with 15 million passenger cars. So if these are to be reduced, then it's a massive challenge. And we acknowledge this, and we are pretty motivated, and our members are very committed to going ahead and trying to overcome this challenge. So just to draw parallels, if you look at the world's largest haul trucks, then they move up to 400 tons, and that's the same as carrying around 100 adult elephants on each truck, which kind of gives you a big visualization if you're not that aware of the tonnage. So our CEO signed a net zero commitment back in 2020, where our objective is to make sure that individually each company is achieving net zero by in scope 1 and scope 2 by 2050, if not sooner, and also accelerating action on scope 3. So this is primarily the key commitment that is driving and indirectly kind of pushing our ambitions. So why is greenhouse gas reduction a priority for the ICC initiative? So as I mentioned earlier, you can look at the 28,000 large trucks. So that is literally a massive target to reduce CO2. So what does that mean in terms of like layman terms? So if you look at 69 million tons of CO2, that's roughly the same amount that if you take 4 million first class flights a round trip from London to Santiago, that's the same amount of CO2 it implies. In terms of mining operations, If you were to go fully green, and let's say all those trucks were to be converted into battery electric, then that's roughly half the amount of energy the UK consumed back in 2023. So that just paints a massive picture. And if you look at in terms of visualization of what that would mean in terms of requirement for renewables, then it's about 20,000 onshore wind turbines. Or if you look at the scale of solar farm, then it would be 2.5 times the size of London. So we certainly need to be mindful of also the kind of capital required for that. So we are trying to certainly make an emphasis on the challenges, not just surrounding the machines, but also surrounding infrastructure over the past few years. So this has been identified through the collaboration, and to highlight that we're coming closer together to collaborate and drive change through that. Mike, are you online?
I don't think he's back.
Okay, that's it's totally fine. So diesel particulate matter control strategies. So we are looking into this sort of 4-phase or 4-step kind of approach in particular when it comes to DPM control strategies. So firstly, prevention of DPM generation. So that is so prevention is better than cure, as they say. So prevention of the generation, and then of the release. So how do you avoid the release, and how do you prevent it? And then once it is released, how do you do the management of DPM? And then last but not least is also the monitoring and verification, which is crucial when you look at the different zones where the DPM is released, because respiratory issues, cancer, and cardiovascular diseases are major health concerns when it comes to impacts from DPM, and our health strategies, health and safety strategies, to certainly ensure that we are minimizing and eliminating that.
Thanks, Tariq. Sorry, I was switched to viewing only.
Do you want to take over the rally from here, Mike, or do you want me to go to the next slide?
No, I think we can stay on this slide. I just wanted to add, and thanks for jumping in on this, Tariq, just that we did look at the DPM control strategies. Where this originated was we saw the need for a good practice guidance and a commitment from the ICMM members. So this is where we started the development on what these control strategies might look like, and we developed a good practice guidance on DPM management, which we published in December of 2024, so not long ago. So it's a new piece of good practice guidance that provides some insight into what a good management plan for DPM looks like for underground operations. And I'm sure anybody that is familiar with the 5-step process of defining what the clear objectives and scope of your DPM management plan, and then secondly, assessing where you are at the moment, and then analyzing your emission profiles, prioritizing what equipment should be addressed first, because some equipment do produce higher emission rates or higher emission sources than others, and then starting to control or implementing necessary controls for those. And the good practice guidance doesn't define exactly very specifically the controls, because these are broad and might be different for various reasons. So it might depend on your area of operation, your type of equipment, the age of the mining equipment. So, and then also just verifying whether these control strategies you are implementing are working. So it's nothing, I would say, new. I think the define, assess, analyze, control, and verify process is well-known process, but it is a new document. So we are also working with the members to do some internal webinars on the importance of DPM management, the long-term effects, and also sharing some information on what the members are doing to implement good management plans. So the document is available on the ICMM website. So if anybody is interested in viewing that document, I don't think we provided a link in this presentation, but more than welcome to share the link to that for further clarity if you are interested. Thanks, Tariq.
Thank you, Michael. So yeah, I mentioned collaboration quite some time. So obviously it is a journey that we as an industry would like to kind of achieve, and as ICMM, through ICSV, we'd like to act as the catalyst, and then we have a co-catalyst through this partnership in CHARIN. So interoperability is an industry problem, and it is a critical issue. It is absolutely critical to ensure that our collaborative efforts help to address this. We certainly don't want a Tesla CCS kind of situation or a USB Apple kind of situation in the mining industry. So no matter what kind of truck or what kind of equipment you're using, you like to push for that. And here you can see that through the CHARIN collaboration, I mean, they have done a lot of work on the on-highway and also in the marine industry that we can leverage on. And back in 2022, following the Charge On initiative that was launched by some of our members and endorsed by other members as well, it resulted in the industry clearly identifying interoperability as a major problem. And this then resulted in this partnership. And then it's now officially 2 years that this partnership has been formed. 2 white papers have been published on dynamic and static charging, and there's another one on route as well. So there's a lot more information available on the CHARIN and the ICMM website. So if you do have more, if you do require more information, then certainly feel free to look into that or to reach out. That's it from our end. I think it went a bit quicker than we probably expected, but we certainly look forward to hearing any questions and then trying to respond to them accordingly.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike and Tariq. So anyone have any questions? You can type them into the chat box, or yeah. I suppose it's a big challenge to address, big problem. So curious to see if you've got any timelines on where you're seeing this sort of electrification or whatever coming through to sort of address the diesel particulate or the carbon emissions sort of problems. Like a lot of the technology is still quite in its infancy. So curious your thoughts on that.
Thanks, Brett. I think that's a very interesting question. Mike, would you like to go first from a DPM perspective before I weigh in on GHG?
Yeah, I think just from the DPM, I think when you do look at underground operations, they are, as Tariq mentioned in the presentation, the 4 controls looking at where the DPM emissions originate. So controlling either at the tailpipe and then also you get after treatment. But there's many different solutions to DPM management in an underground operation. So it might be you have new equipment that has better technology fitted, or it might be that ventilation is better managed just due to the mine design. So I think from a technology perspective, we can say it's not really in its infancy, because just due to the broad spectrum of management options. And that's where the guidance comes into play, where it provides some insight into that 5-step process, where you actually have to look at, where you are at the moment and what solution might suit you better. Because as I mentioned, your one solution in one area might not work in the next one. So it's just looking at that very specific problem that you are solving for the site and that specific underground operation, and then looking to find a suitable technology or solution, or it might be a new mine where you start designing from the start to manage that DPM in the underground. So yeah, I think that kind of covers the point on DPM. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Michael. And I think just maybe adding a little bit to DPM as well, there's also the ventilation costs. I think that's a high factor when it comes to battery electrification, for example. So I think from a surface mining point of view, if you look at, I mean, technologies still, let's say the technology and commercial readiness level is still probably not there yet, but the timelines look pretty well aligned. I mean, if you look at the post-mine expo or and the electric mine, the public announcements that have been made. So the OEMs are certainly progressing, and then mining companies also look very committed. The challenge, the key challenge, challenges rather lie around the infrastructure. So how quickly can you get the infrastructure on site to charge or to refuel, depending on the kind of technology that you're looking at, and how do you have enough energy on site, or do you need to produce that, or does your grid kind of the PPAs, etc. And like, because there's also leading times in setting up the infrastructure and the procuring the energy, so that is anywhere between 2 to 4 years. So keeping that leading time in mind, I think when you look at those objectives is very important, and safety is crucial, because you have things like DC arc flash and battery fires, etc., that need to be kept in mind. It's not like, simply you have a diesel machine, like somebody can just refuel it. You have voltages at such levels that you obviously need automated charges. You can't have manually people plugging that in. And there's also change management. I mean, there's a lot of skill, and mining traditionally has been a conventional, very conservative industry. So that massive change management. It is about the people as much as it is about the equipment. So these are factors, I think, that play in, and we're certainly doing our best to trying to elevate that and making sure the transition is smooth.
No, thank you. I've got a couple of questions have come through, so I'm just your thoughts on one from Alex around. I suppose I'll just read the whole thing out. But would the work with OEMs be around innovation of the fleet to include up to standard machinery, or just to allow mining companies to retrofit? So I suppose it's whether or not new equipment or retrofitting sort of what they've got at the moment. Sort of thoughts around that.
I think it's a bit tricky, but I think I'll try my best to answer that. I think it also depends on your operation, whether it's a greenfield or brownfield, right? And it also depends on how do you consider retrofits, because there's sometimes a guarantee is void when you get something retrofitted, whether it's the same company that is like kind of building a power agnostic platform, and then you are retrofitting onto existing equipment as part of that contract, or is it some other company that is kind of retrofitting that? And how do you look at, are your objectives more around the 2030 for the midterm goals, or are you looking at long term? So I think it is a not one size fits all. I think it's a mix and match sort of combination. So I don't know if that answers your question, Alex, but that's the best I can do. Anything to add, Mike?
Yeah, I think just to the point, where retrofitting, comes into play. As mentioned, it voids the warranty sometimes. That might be the case. So then it becomes challenging. So you have to follow the necessary planning, speak with the OEM to see whether the retrofit would be suitable. And I think for underground operations, a very important factor is the monitoring and verification, whether that is the best solution. So it is something that we included in our DPM management control strategy, is how you monitor and verify whether these solutions are doing what the intended or intention was. So I think that's just an important factor for underground, is that monitoring and verification for brownfields.
Thank you.
Sorry, but I just wanted to add one last thing, I think, to that on the retrofits. I think there's another important factor to consider is also the downtime, like during the retrofit, because you're not producing, so unless you have like spare fleet to kind of cover up for that production, I think it also impacts your TCO element as well. So I think that is another factor, whether it's high enough for you to kind of actually consider alternative equipment, or it's actually a trade-off that you're willing to do in that time.
A question I was actually speaking to someone earlier today about there seeming to be more diesel electric sort of options coming in, probably more the underground space to sort of bridge the gap between diesel and the battery electric, whether it's, it's, I suppose, harder to get the full sort of fleet, whereas it's probably a bit more out there in open pits. I'm curious your thoughts on that transition, if there's a place for the diesel electric, that sort of reducing your diesel consumption down, but still not being fully electric.
Mike, I think that's probably one for you.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I think just from that perspective, if we do consider, the underground operations, when we were gathering the feedback, I think those are all kind of very valid aspects to consider, and I think depending on whether the control is the prevention of DPM generation, I think is the biggest challenge, because existing operations already have the factor of DPM being released. So you have to, I think most management plans would look at the management of released DPM and how you can better improve that. So as you mentioned, Brett, I think when you do look at your fleet doesn't get replaced at once. It's not an immediate thing. So you might start with replacing 5%, 10% or 20%, and that retrofitting and replacement. So it is on within the DPM framework, there are 5 levels. So you have level 1, which is essentially the old equipment, and level 5 being fully battery electric. So you can use that framework to kind of determine where you are at this moment. And that framework does provide some useful insight into, if you are level 2, what do you need to go to level 3? And then you can use that to determine what the next steps are within your planning, because it would be very difficult to go from level 1 straight to level 5. I don't think that is something, because it would also be very cost heavy. So that's also a factor that you need to consider, is that those 5 levels. And we have the 5 levels for not just DPM, but GHG has the 5 levels, and also for vehicle interaction on the safety side, there's also the 5-level framework. I believe that's also on the website and available for individuals to download and view. It's just a 1-pager providing a kind of a very brief summary of each level. But I think that's a very useful document to use when you are considering these aspects.
Spot on, Mike. I think it's very good to have cited the maturity framework. I think it's an important tool that we have kind of developed and is available for public viewing, of course. And that it's very, very a helpful tool to kind of measure which level you are at, as you mentioned.
That's particularly like the difference between like a greenfields and brownfields, like setting up greenfields to be fully electric or whatever is a lot easier than you're changing an existing fleet and an existing mine with inbuilt infrastructure and all that. So I suppose it's a staged process for those more brownfields operations.
It could also be the contrary sometimes, but depending on the topology. I mean, if it's, for example, a trolley diesel mine, where you already have the infrastructure that can be leveraged for a dynamic charging situation, or if you already have the power infrastructure on site and you just need to add on some elements. So I guess it depends on what kind of commodity or what kind of geography you're situated in as well.
Right, and we just had another question from Derek. I mean, do you think the increased economic pressure around the world means that companies are generally more risk averse to new technologies, or the very opposite?
I think that's a very good one. Thanks, Derek. I think companies are certainly very, very aware of economic pressure. I think it goes without saying it's a very capital-heavy, capital-dependent industry, and investor pressures, particularly with things that are going geopolitically and socioeconomically in the world. I think that's something very crucial that the companies are certainly, our members are certainly taking into account. I mean, but that said, I think they are very innovative and they're very heavy on collaboration, and they are very sensible as well in terms of forming those partnership and alliances. If you look at our OEM partners, if you look at those Caterpillar Early Learner programs or the Komatsu Greenhouse Gas Alliance, kind of partnerships where like multiple companies are engaging in that shared learning. And if you look at combined trials as well, for example, in the Pilbara, you have BHP, Rio Tinto, Caterpillar, and Komatsu competitors putting their differences aside and doing that early trial of a battery truck or trucks rather, to learn about the change management, about the safety, about the different points of the journey together. So they are taking risks together, and like, making sure that they're sharing a little bit of those costs, but also then sharing those learnings. And then you have partnerships for example, in Chile, where you have Codelco, Antofagasta, and BHP coming together as well. They're also doing these shared learnings. And then again, you also have the likes. I mean, they're not ICMM members, but a very important player in the mining industry. You have Fortescue forming that partnership with Liebherr, with XCMG. They're also doing those learning together. So it's about sharing those risks as well, and then learning together rather than trying to go on the journey yourself. You also had Anglo American back in the day who gave birth to First Mode, which is now a Cummins company, but they have they built what used to be the world's largest zero emission truck back then. So it is something that people do have the appetite for risk. To what level, that is something that varies from entity to entity, I believe. Anything to add, Mike?
Yeah, no, I think you covered it well. I think it would depend on, I think regulatory requirements also becoming more stringent, so that does become a factor in kind of the future planning and what operations need to implement and to ensure that they are meeting those developing regulatory or regional requirements. So I think that does also factor into how quickly innovation might take place in the short and long term. But I think just from I think when we do look at efficiency, so it also depends on whether the solutions available would be the most efficient, and also the demand for technology might vary for regionally as well, because I think trials do happen sometimes, outside your operations. So you then have to wait for that to come to your area to make it cost effective.
Well said, Mike. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, just one more question come through now from Francois. When considering the cost pros and cons of conventional versus electrification, does it only make sense when you include non-financial metrics, take it like GHGs or whatever, or is it electrification financially justifiable in some cases on a cost basis alone? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's this kind of what most people kind of begin with, right? I think in most industries, at least in the purchasing side, or when you look at the long term kind of timeline side. But yeah, I think that's a good one, Francois. I think there's like two elements to it. So I mean, financial, yes, obviously. I mean, in the end, people are there to run a business, so they do consider financial metrics. But there's also the emissions and safety aspect, right? I mean, if you are going for autonomous electric fleet, you're reducing the operation costs, but you're also kind of ensuring a little bit more safety around in the mine. And then, like, maybe on the TCO in the long run, you're suddenly going to do something, but it will also depend on your energy costs and your procurement costs, and whether you are considering the battery as an OPEX, because in some cases, some companies are proposing batteries as a service. So it depends on if you also look at hydrogen. I mean, through fuel cell electrification as well. I mean, like the hydrogen costs today are not there, but doesn't mean that tomorrow they can't be done. And then do you get any carbon credits or do you get like sort of a green bonus if you're reducing emissions? And these are elements as well that you need to consider when it comes to that. I think, yeah, that's what I can say. And then, yeah, diesel fuel costs are like, a major factor as well, despite all your infrastructure changes and the procurement changes. So that on the long run, certainly there is a more positive impact on the TCO from what we are hearing. From an underground perspective, Mike, I think ventilation costs as well, right?
Yep. So I think I don't have much to add to what you've already provided, but I think yeah, ventilation cost and also effectiveness comes into factor.
Well, there's no more questions. Anyone else got any questions out there? We might wrap it up there, but yeah, thanks, Tariq and Mike, for that presentation and the Q&A. That was quite informative. Good to hear what you guys are up to at ICMM. So yeah, thank you. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and yeah, if you can share those, some of those documents you mentioned, I'll share them on when we put this out on LinkedIn and wherever. But much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks, Brett. Thanks
everyone
for attending. Yeah.
Cheers.